So nice, we had to do it twice. Welcome back to this special two-part edition of Beef Wars, GSP versus Matt Hughes versus B.J. Penn. I'm Shaquille Majuri for SB Nation MMA, and let's get rockin'. St Pierre returned from his injury to face Hughes for the title at UFC 65 in November of 2006, and this time he wouldn't be denied. He absolutely dominated Hughes from the opening bell to the finish of the fight a minute and a half into the second round, but the victory wasn't without controversy, as Hughes complained about two questionable low blows that GSP denies were even real. "I do not believe I kicked him in the groin," St Pierre said after. "I believe it was inside the thigh. Maybe I touched his cup, a real cup like you should wear in the sport. It shouldn't hurt. If it was for real, it's my mistake, but I do not believe it was a groin kick." The inside thigh kicks paid off in the end, leading to the fight finishing exchange. "I was using a lot of inside kicks to the thigh, and then I went to his head," GSP said. "That put him down to the floor and I used punches and elbows to finish him off." "I can't describe the feeling. Becoming champion, beating Matt Hughes, who was a legend, and I was so afraid of the first time. That was the best feeling of my life. I learned so much of myself in those first two fights with Hughes. They were the two most important fights of my career." The MMA world is wild and chaotic, and history is often made off bad luck or random chance. Matt Hughes almost had his chance to regain the welterweight title a third time after The Ultimate Fighter. Comeback winner Matt Serra knocked out St Pierre in what is still considered the biggest upset in UFC history. Serra and Hughes were chosen as coaches for The Ultimate Fighter Season 6, with the UFC's plan being a title fight on the UFC's big 2007 New Year's Eve card, UFC 79. But a month before the fight, a back injury would take Serra off the card. In a cruel twist of fate, replacing him would be, you guessed it, George St Pierre. The rubber match between St Pierre and Hughes went down very similar to their second fight just a year prior, with St Pierre just too quick and too powerful for Hughes, who was beginning to show his age. In an interesting coincidence, the fight ended in reverse of their first fight. Hughes attempted a Kimura submission on St Pierre, only to get reversed and trapped in an armbar. Matt was forced to verbally submit with 6 seconds left in the second round, making St Pierre the winner of their rubber match and 2-1 in the feud. Following the loss to Matt Hughes in 2006, B.J. Penn finally returned to the lightweight division, where he dominated the competition and captured the lightweight belt. But after his first successful title defense, Penn couldn't help but look up to the 170-pound division yet again. And while it had never before been done in UFC history, UFC President Dana White allowed the lightweight champion to move up in weight to challenge the welterweight title holder, GSP, at UFC 94.
How you doing,
The
guys?
biggest fight in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, according to President Dana White, will be the Battle of Champions. Welterweight champion George St Pierre versus lightweight champion B.J. Penn from Hilo, Hawaii.
Yourself, after that first fight, it was controversial. How much of this is a revenge fight that you say, you know what, I gotta prove the fact that, you know what, I won that first fight, I want some revenge?
For me, it's not like a revenge, like it's a personal thing with George. You know, it's just a chance to get to fight, you know, one of the greatest fighters, you know, in the world today, and that's what this whole thing is about. It's about the two best stepping in the ring.
It's nothing personal. It's business, you know. I really admire BJ. I got a lot of respect for him, but I want to be known as the best fighter in the world, and to be the best, the guy to beat is BJ Penn, you know.
From the first round of the fight, St Pierre controlled the pace, working takedowns and wearing Penn out. By the second round, he had Penn on the canvas and started working him over with methodical ground and pound, a story that would continue through the third and fourth rounds. Penn struggled to control St Pierre in his guard, but was unable to keep the Canadian from posturing up and unloading with big shots. By the fourth round, he was so exhausted and taking serious damage, before the fifth could start, his corner threw in the towel. But as the world watching at home marveled at St Pierre's dominance, controversy was swirling at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Between rounds, people cage-side noticed St Pierre cornerman Phil Nurse applying Vaseline to St Pierre's brow and then seeming to rub the excess lubrication to his back. Nevada Commission officials got involved, attempting to towel GSP's back off between the second and third. Video footage from the event clearly showed the questionable moments where Nurse applied the Vaseline to George's face, which is legal, and then touched his shoulders and rubbing his back, which is not. And thus, Greasegate began.
Do you feel like you were cheated, robbed in that second fight with GSP?
I mean, did you see it? You saw what I saw.
All right, well, there you go.
Penn's team filed a complaint with the Nevada State Athletic Commission asking for an investigation into the incident. Penn's lawyer contended that the illegal application of Vaseline made it impossible for Mr. Penn to defend himself, a Globe and Mail report read. More importantly, by neutralizing Mr. Penn's Brazilian jiu-jitsu abilities through the use of illegal and improper means, Mr. Penn was subjected to a life-threatening and career-ending environment, an environment that the commission was formed to protect against, said Penn's lawyer. St. Pierre's team claimed the back-touching was part of a breathing exercise and not an attempt to cheat. They said, "You're putting Vaseline on his back," St. Pierre coach Greg Jackson said. And Phil's like, "Oh, there might be a little bit on my fingers, but it wasn't intentional at all, and of course they wiped it right off and it was gone, so it wasn't a factor in the fight at all." NSAC head Keith Kaiser explained what he saw on the night of the fight shortly after. At the end of the second round I watched, and then another cornerman, he put the Vaseline on George's face, and then he put his hand on his back to do the breathing thing they always do. As soon as I saw that, it looked like there was still some Vaseline on his hand. Not a lot, but still some. I immediately yelled at him, and I don't think he heard us because of the noise. So I actually went into the octagon and I said, "Take your hand off of his back. What are you doing?" We wiped it down. We made sure it was wiped down after the third round as well. I was very upset. I don't know if they were doing it intentionally or not. Either way, they shouldn't have done it. It definitely wasn't fair to Mr. Penn. I don't think it was even fair to Mr. St. Pierre. His cornerman should have been more careful if it was an accident. If it was intentional, that's even worse. Just very, very disturbing. In the end, no punishments were dealt out to St. Pierre or his team, but changes were made to prevent any similar incidents in the future. Corners were barred from handling anything more than water or towels for their fighters. Vaseline is now applied only by a cut man hired by the UFC. But that wasn't enough for B.J. Penn, who went further with his allegations of cheating to also accuse St. Pierre of using performance-enhancing drugs. In my opinion, he doesn't play by the rules when it comes to steroids and growth hormones and that stuff, Penn told Yahoo Sports. Look at him. He's the worst. He looks like that every day. That's cheating. There is a reason why there are rules against using steroids. The rest of us, we get fat, then we train and get skinny, and the cycle goes over and over again. He looks the same all the time. Pfft, come on. Even after his comments generated an uproar in the mainstream sports world, Penn refused to back down. "It's just my opinion that he uses steroids," Penn said. "That's it. My opinion. I do believe it. I can't hand you any proof, but that's my opinion."
It doesn't bother me. In a way that it bothered me, just that he said that I'm a liar, I'm a cheater. That's bothering me a little bit, but now it's over my head, and the thing that I can do to piss him off even more, it's helping Kenny Florian to kick his ass, and that's what I'm going to do.
Penn felt like the controversy was enough to warrant a third fight with St. Pierre, which would have been good for business considering the second did over 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. But a third fight between the two never materialized. St. Pierre would go on to defend his 170-pound belt another 7 times after the Penn fight, solidifying his position as the greatest welterweight champion in UFC history. Penn would hold on to the lightweight belt for 2 more successful defenses before dropping a pair of fights to Frankie Edgar. Thus ends the battle for dominance between 3 of the most talented fighters to ever compete in mixed martial arts. But there is an epilogue of sorts to finish things off, and it's not the kind of thing you'll normally see in these beef war videos. Because after their first 2 fights against each other, Matt Hughes and B.J. Penn became unlikely friends before ultimately battling for a 3rd time in 2010. Here's what Penn said about it in an interview with UFC. "Even though I'm a person who always holds grudges, and I never like someone who kicked my ass no matter how much they're nice to me, for some reason I never had that ego thing with Matt after I gotta fight you again. It was for all intents and purposes done. Our friendship started when I went back to lightweight again. We started hanging out and soon it was, this guy ain't so bad. He ain't so bad." To hear Penn tell the tale, Hughes accepted the rubber match almost as a favor after BJ's second loss to Frankie Edgar left the UFC with few ideas on what to do with the Hawaiian.
Surprised that the UFC wanted the fight right now. I'm surprised that BJ wanted the fight right now. Who would have guessed somebody to move up in weight after losing twice, at a smaller weight. So I am surprised, but that, you got to take your hat off to BJ. He's always wanting to fight the best guys out there.
Penn would end up winning their third fight at UFC 123 in 20 seconds, hitting Hughes with a right that dropped him to the canvas for a quick stoppage. Even that didn't sour their growing friendship. In 2015, Hughes was the man tapped by the UFC to introduce Penn as they inducted him into the promotion's Hall of Fame.
Now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you the newest member of the UFC Hall of Fame, the two-time, two-division world champion, the prodigy, a man I'm proud to call my friend, B.J. Penn.
Which just goes to show you that while championship belts and title reigns may be temporary, there are friends you make along the way that can last a lifetime. How would you rank B.J. Penn, Matt Hughes, and George St Pierre among the all-time great welterweights? Let us know in the comments what you think, and if you enjoyed this video, the best way you can help our channel grow is by hitting like, tapping subscribe, and hitting the notification bell for more MMA goodness just like this. Most importantly, stay safe.